Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. I have made no secret of my love for the Dark Souls board game. I rank it as one of my top 10 favourite games of all time. I know it doesn't always get the best press in some circles, but I find the game thoroughly engaging. I love the combat system, I love every puzzle each new room presents, and of course I think the boss fights are a fantastic translation from video game to tabletop. Not too long ago I reviewed Dark Souls here on the channel, and while I did briefly touch on the new revised rules which appear in the two new core sets, Painted World of Ariamis and Tomb of Giants, my focus was primarily on the original rules from the first core set. I had downloaded a PDF of the revised rules and looked through them, but I felt that for the most part I didn't need to implement many of the changes in those new rules because I already enjoyed the game so much. I did want to try out the new campaign system though, so when the good people at Steamforged Games reached out to ask if I would like a review copy of Painted World of Ariamis, I naturally said I would love one. Unfortunately, life being what it is, I haven't yet been able to play the campaign system from this new core set, which is the thing I was most excited to drill into, but I am in the process of rectifying that. For now, I just thought I would do a quick unboxing of this new core set, show off some of the components, and talk a little about what this revised entry point into the game system brings. Before we get started though, I do want to mention the fact that my copy of the game arrived bearing a few scars. The corner of the box took quite a knock in transit, and unfortunately that has resulted in some damage to the game components, mainly on the map tiles. Besides the battle damage, the immediate thing I noticed is that the new core set doesn't make the same grand impression as the original one. The box is shorter in length and width, and only around 2/3 as deep. Where originally you got 2 bosses, 4 mini-bosses, 6 enemy types and 4 characters, Painted World only has 1 boss, 1 mini-boss, 5 enemy types and 3 characters. And I must say, I think it's with the characters that I'm most disappointed. Firstly, 3 is an unusual number. This is a 4-player game, but out of the box it is only supporting 3 players. You are going to need another core set or the character expansion to run a full team. Secondly, all 3 of the characters here are already from that character expansion, the Mercenary, the Sorcerer and the Deprived. That's fine if you don't already have the character expansion, but if you do, it's recycled content. And while I understand that decision and I wasn't necessarily expecting new characters, I would have liked to at least see some new sculpts. Finally, because Painted World contains the Deprived, Sorcerer and Mercenary, the other 3 characters from the character expansion, the Thief, Pyromancer and Cleric, appear in the other core set Tomb of Giants, and that means the original 4 characters from the first core set are still only available in that core set. I think I would have really liked to see 5 heroes in each of these sets. 2 of the original 4 and then 3 from the character pack. That would have allowed a 4-player game right out of the box and even would have allowed for some varied team composition. I realise that would have pushed costs up with more plastic and cards in the box, but I think it really would have added a lot, especially as this is by no means a cheap set. The recommended retail price is £109.99 in the UK, although of course you can often find it cheaper online. Around £80 to £90 seems to be the norm for many retailers, which is a much more reasonable price point as far as I'm concerned. It is a shame that the first impression is that this set doesn't have the same kind of value as the original, because you are still getting some really cool stuff in the box. The big bad for this set, no surprise to anybody who has explored the Painted World in the video game, is Crossbreed Priscilla, and I think this is a lovely miniature, or bigature I guess. She really looks like she is going to give you a whooping. She comes with her own data card, a 13 card behaviour deck comprising 10 regular cards and 3 heat up cards, and her health dial. I'm not going to spoil her behaviour deck for you, but I will say prepare to bleed, because a scary amount of her cards apply the bleed status. She can also inflict frostbite, is pretty tasty with magic attacks, and at the start of the combat and whenever she resets her behaviour deck, she turns invisible, which prevents characters from gaining bonus dice for attacking her weak arc. I am definitely looking forward to getting kicked around the board by her. The mini-boss is the Heavy Knight, who looks like an absolute beast. I love the powerful stance and massive shield. I have to say, generally, I think Steamforged Games are improving in terms of the quality of their miniatures. I think these are some of the nicer Dark Souls miniatures available right now. They seem to be a more robust plastic that is rigid enough that you don't get the bending seen on older miniatures like Ornstein, and the details seem a little crisper with less visible mould lines and joins. The Heavy Knight comes with a data card and a 9-card behaviour deck comprising 6 regular cards and 3 heat up cards, plus a health dial. Most of his attacks inflict the stagger condition, which forces characters to spend an additional stamina to attack. He also has a special brutal impact ability where if he hits a character who already has the stagger condition, that character must place a stamina token on their endurance bar. As if that wasn't enough, his heat up cards have Estus symbols on them that heal 3 wounds when he plays them. Fortunately, many of his attacks are quite easy to dodge. The new regular enemies are a fun bunch. You get 2 bone wheel skeletons. I really hated these guys in Dark Souls 3. They are pretty easy to kill as they only have 1 resistance, 1 block and 1 health, but they are fast, performing a very powerful push attack twice per activation, which is quite difficult to dodge. You get 2 engorged zombies, which are, frankly, gross. Real nightmare fuel. Look at the screaming little mouth. These things are slow and only attack at close range, but they have good defense, and they do massive magic damage, which from my experience with the board game is never a good thing. Next we have possibly the creepiest enemies in the set, the Crow Demons. You get 2 of these long boys, and 2 is more than enough because they're a bit of a horror show. They have good resistance, 5 health, and when they activate they immediately leap onto the aggro space, pushing everyone for 6 damage. That's going to be tough to deal with. Then there are 2 of these little cuties, the Snow Rats. I like these little chaps. They have a fun inquisitive stance, like they are looking at you and trying to figure out what you might taste like. They are a weak enemy, 1 health, 1 resistance and no block, but they are fast, leaping onto the aggro character and inflicting 3 damage. Worst of all, they cause poison. Poison will inflict an additional wound at the end of the character's turn. Finally, you get 5 of these delightful monstrosities. These are the Phalanxes. They're just globby amalgams of rotting flesh with spears and shields, really. They are also one of the most complicated enemies in the game because they come in 2 forms, a single phalanx hollow or a phalanx comprising 3 hollows. So you get 2 different enemy cards for them with slightly different stats. Basically, when they fight as a unit, they cause 5 damage instead of 4, and that damage is applied to every character on the target node. All 3 hollows in the phalanx are considered one enemy with 5 health points, but once they have taken 5 damage, they break apart. Each hollow is moved to a different adjacent node, and then those hollows will continue to fight independently and will have just 1 health each. It's a pretty neat concept and makes the phalanx feel quite different to the other enemies we have seen up to this point. And I have to say, all of these enemies look good. There's lots of really fast hard hitting stuff, the crow demons and rats that jump on you, and then the bone wheels that activate twice, and then the slower phalanx hollows that are going to stick around for a while causing problems, and the tough zombies with magic attacks. Besides the miniatures, you get a good wedge of other stuff. There are 3 punch boards for the various tokens, and also the character boards. Dark Souls can be a bit of a table hog, but for the new core sets, Steamforged Games have redesigned the character boards to make them more compact. Cards are now positioned around the edge of the board rather than on it, and unfortunately the beautiful character art has been confined to a banner at the top where you also house your various tokens. Where upgrades, health and stamina were previously tracked with wooden cubes, now everything is done with cardboard tokens. Along the bottom of the board is the endurance bar. Before playing, you are supposed to push out all of these tokens to leave empty spaces. The tokens are double-sided with wounds on the front and stamina on the back, so as you play the game, you push them back in with the correct side facing up. On the subject of the endurance bar, it's worth mentioning some rules changes regarding its use. Now at the start of a character activation they recover 3 stamina instead of 2. Additionally, a character is no longer defeated when they place the token that fills the bar. Instead, they are only defeated if they have to place a token on the endurance bar but there is no space for it. I like both of these changes as it's just a bit more forgiving on the players and helps to keep the game moving in a nice clip. The upgrade slots on the boards work in a similar way to the endurance bar. They already have the tokens located in the spaces and they shouldn't be removed. When you do upgrade one of your attributes, you push out the token, flip it over to the gold side and push it back in. While this system might make more efficient use of space on the board, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's much more fiddly than placing wooden cubes into the spaces, and I am concerned that over time the upgrade tokens are going to get loose and will fall out of the frame. And of course, if all the squares fall out of the frame, there is no way of knowing which one is supposed to go where unless you download the FAQ from the Steamforged Games website. So while I appreciate the effort to scale down the character boards, I am definitely going to continue using the original boards in conjunction with wooden cubes. Of course, the punch boards also contain all the utility tokens like wounds and souls. I did notice the heroic action tokens are the same on both sides. They are supposed to have a ready side and a used side. Bit of a cock up, but fortunately not a problem if you have the original core set. The punch boards also contain the terrain elements like barrels and gravestones. These terrain elements all have completely new rules. Barrels no longer cost 1 extra stamina to break through. Instead, you can break them at will, but if you don't, at the end of the battle you roll 1 black dice for each barrel that's still intact and gain a soul for each success you roll. I think this is a nice improvement. Extra souls are always good and help you upgrade more quickly, but I also think this rule creates a more interesting choice regarding barrels. Originally, you would avoid barrels unless you really needed to smash your way through them. Now you can smash through them with impunity, which can be helpful if you need to get across the board at speed, but if you do that, it's going to cost you in souls. Gravestones used to let you peek at 1 card in the mini-boss or boss behaviour deck before fighting them, but now you can spend an action while adjacent to a gravestone to look at the top card of the treasure, event or encounter deck and then place it back on the top of the deck or place it at the bottom to help you plan ahead. Chests have also changed. Rather than granting 2 equipment cards if you successfully clear the room of enemies, instead you have to spend your action while adjacent to one to open it and draw a single equipment card. There are also some new interactive room features such as torches, levers and poison clouds. You get less room tiles in this box than in the original core, but the ones you get are really nice. There are 4 in total, all double-sided, and they perfectly depict the chilly Painted World. I like them a lot, and the design of the nodes has been changed to make it clearer in which directions you can move. One tile has a mini-boss icon on it and is used when you battle the Heavy Knight. Another one has the boss icon on it and is used in conjunction with the mini-boss tile to make a large arena for your final conflict. You also get a good wedge of small equipment cards. There are 30 class-specific cards, 42 common cards, 15 legendary cards and 5 boss item cards. With the exception of the boss items, I believe all of the other cards are recycled from the original core set, although a few may have updated rules. One major change for equipment is that you can now freely add and remove upgrades from weapons as well as armor. This gives players a lot more freedom to mix and match upgrades and to more rapidly level up their gear. Again, I would say that is another decent change. There is nothing worse than finding a cool upgrade but then having to sit on it unused while you look for a decent weapon to add it to. The other components in the box are related to the brand new campaign system, which looks pretty neat, but also very different to how Dark Souls used to play. You get a large campaign board that tracks your progress and has space for your inventory and a bunch of other stuff. These 4 spaces here are for placing items that are available to buy when you return to the blacksmith. This is a big change from the old rules. Originally, you could visit the blacksmith as many times as you wanted, paying 1 soul to draw 1 item from the deck. You could also visit the blacksmith without having to rest at the bonfire. Now you can only visit the blacksmith once and only when you are resting at the bonfire, which costs a spark. You draw 4 cards to create a shop and you can buy as many of those cards as you want for 1 soul each. I love this change. When you can keep spending souls to sift the deck, sometimes you start to obsess over finding just the right piece of kit, and you can waste a lot of souls in the process. By limiting players to 1 visit to the blacksmith each time they visit the bonfire, they are forced to re-evaluate their choices and play to the cards they are dealt. You start to experiment more with what you have rather than desperately searching for what you don't. I was already using this rule change in my own games, and I think it really does encourage you to use the items you would normally shun and to try different, probably suboptimal character builds just because it's the best you can do at the time. The main reason the campaign board is necessary is because you no longer set up a whole dungeon and explore it by moving from room to room. Now you advance your team token on the campaign tracker. If you reach a regular empty space, you draw 2 encounter cards of the appropriate level, as indicated on the space itself, and pick 1 to play. If you reach the mini-boss or boss space, there's no choice in the matter, it's time to go through the fog gate. Regardless, the encounter card is placed in the space on the track, and then you set up the board based on the card's instructions. If at any point you return to the bonfire, either through choice or because you were defeated, you have to start working along the campaign track from the beginning, completing every challenge once again, unless you have defeated the mini-boss, in which case you start from that space on the track, or you have found any shortcuts, in which case you can continue your journey from the shortcut of your choice, skipping earlier encounters. The encounter cards are a complete reinvention of the encounter system from the first edition of the game, and significantly change how and why you approach each fight. There are 27 spread across 3 levels of difficulty, and then 1 for the mini-boss and 1 for the boss. Here's an example of a level 1 encounter, the First Bastion. It says a rusted portcullis halts your progress, rattling loudly as you attempt to raise it. There is a map at the bottom which indicates we will be using a single tile, with heroes entering the battle from any of the top 3 nodes. On the right, it lists any monsters and terrain elements and indicates where they should be placed. There will also be a trap symbol here if the room is trapped. We are lucky, no traps in the first bastion, just one lowly rat, an exit and a lever. If we look back at the top of the card, it says our objective is to activate the lever 3 times and then reach the exit. Straightforward enough. However, we can see there are some special rules. First, there is a trial. Trials are special missions that are available for completion during some encounters. You don't need to complete them, but if you do, you get bonus rewards. Our trial says we need to kill the engorged zombie. The instructions then go on to reveal that each time we activate the lever in the room, a new enemy will appear. First a rat, then a phalanx hollow, and finally our zombie. Also, on the left, we have some rewards. If we make it out of the bastion, we will get souls equal to 2 plus the number of players. Additionally, if we completed the trial, we get another 3 souls. Other rewards include searching the equipment deck for a specific item, finding shortcuts, or refreshing used character tokens. These encounter cards seem pretty neat. There are a lot of different objectives, such as surviving for a certain number of turns, escaping, killing all the enemies, opening chests, activating levers, defending objects from enemies, and revealing trap tiles. Additionally, there are lots of special rules such as the aforementioned trials, snowstorms, poison clouds, and enemy upgrades that provide different challenges for the players to navigate. Should you complete an encounter, you get to draw an event card, which is something completely new for the campaign rules. These fall into 3 categories. Some are immediate events, such as the Firekeeper's Boon, which lets one character immediately upgrade 1 stat without spending souls. There are consumables, like the Green Blossom, that will let one character run without spending stamina in the next encounter before being discarded. Finally, there are rendezvous, which are placed on the next regular encounter space, and should you complete that encounter, you can complete the event. For example, this undead merchant will let you purchase treasure as if you were visiting the blacksmith. Rendezvous remain in play. And that is pretty much your lot. And as far as initial impressions go, mine are a touch mixed, but largely positive. For the most part, I think there is great stuff in this box. The new regular enemies look interesting, and I am keen to give the boss and mini-boss a go. I think the miniatures are all nicely done. Components appear to be decent quality, thick boards with really nice illustrations. I think Steamforged Games have always done a great job capturing Dark Souls aesthetic in terms of miniatures and artwork. I did notice that one error with the heroic action tokens, which isn't ideal, but nothing else immediately leapt out as being incorrect. Although I am aware they have published some errata online. I am also interested in the campaign system. However, I love the original Dark Souls format, and I'm not sure the campaign with all the special rules and different encounter objectives will feel as true to the video game. I am concerned that perhaps Steamforged Games listened to a lot of the negative chatter about the game, and this campaign system is an attempt to address those concerns, but possibly at the expense of what made the game stand out in the first place. That being said, I am certainly keen to give it a go and will share my thoughts when I do. I also think some of the rules changes in the revised rules are good. I am already playing games using a hybrid rule set, mostly sticking to the original rules, but with just a few little additions from the revision. The biggest letdown for me has got to be the heroes. Like I said, only including 3, and 3 that have already been available in an expansion for years, makes the whole set a lot less appealing to established players and will also give new players fewer options to get started with. I do feel that could have been handled differently. Also, for the price point, I think there could have been just a little more in the box. Maybe another mini-boss, maybe another regular enemy type. Just something to add a little more variety to your games. But for the most part, I think this looks like a decent set that offers a new experience with one of my favourite tabletop games. And surely that is no bad thing at all. I guess I should finish up by briefly addressing compatibility issues. This new set uses new rules and a new campaign, with new cards that aren't compatible with the original format of the game. The box doesn't include any of the old style encounter cards that would allow you to use the demon crows and other regular enemies outside of the new campaign system. Furthermore, there are no cards that allow you to port older enemies from your existing collection into the campaign either. Steamforged Games have gone some way to address that. On their website you can download and print free rules and cards for something called the Sunless City. This lets you run a new campaign using the new rule system in conjunction with the enemies from the original core set, fighting the Titanite Demon mini-boss and then Ornstein and Smaug. It doesn't port all of the old enemies into the new format, and it's a pain to have to print everything out at home, but it's a start. And hopefully we will see more of these conversion kits moving forward, maybe even some physical copies we can order. I would still like to see old style encounter cards that would let me use the new enemies with the old rules as well. But hey, maybe that's just me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you've really enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.